Welcome to this presentation of the Rotary Club of North Bethesda, Maryland, USA. Our club was established in 1974. We meet every Friday morning at 7:45 a.m., and we often invite guest speakers to give presentations on all kinds of interesting subjects. Please contact us through our website at nbrotary.org. And thanks for watching.
This morning, we are very honored to have Janice Pliner, and she's going to talk to us about the history and role of OASIS in Montgomery County. She has worked more than 30 years in the areas of adult education and volunteer and program management. She has a BA in speech communication from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a Master's of Arts in human resource development from Marymount University. She's worked for large corporations, including Gannett and Host Marriott Services, and for national nonprofits like Make-A-Wish Foundation, all wonderful places. Since 2013, Janice has been the program manager at the Washington Metropolitan Oasis. In this role, she's responsible for the planning and development of all courses that are offered and other community locations. And so I don't know how many of you have taken a course at OASIS, but hopefully you'll be inspired by Janice's presentation. Take it away. Do you want to share, Janice? Do you want to?
I'd love to share my screen. Thank you.
Okay.
So let me just do that. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Linda. It's really an honor to speak to such a civic-minded group and a group with a great sense of humor. So let me just share. What I thought I'd do is I'd sort of give you the who we are, and then I'll give you an update since COVID, because, you know, COVID changes everything. So give me just a second to share my screen. Yes, I work for OASIS, Washington Metro Oasis. I've been there since 2013. And who is OASIS? Well, we are a lifelong learning organization. And I'll tell you a little bit about what we do, who founded us, and you may or may not know this, but we are connected to Suburban Hospital and Johns Hopkins Medicine, and I'll explain how that works. Marilyn Mann, who was a resident of St. Louis, Missouri, started OASIS in St. Louis in 1982, so 40 years ago. This is our 40th anniversary. She visited senior centers, and all she saw was older adults playing bingo. And she thought there was a real opportunity there for these older adults to be engaging a lot more. So she got a grant from the U.S. Administration on Aging. And now, actually in our 40th year, the program is thriving in 40 cities with 30,000 plus participants. So the OASIS network consists of OASIS centers like ours, Washington Metro, and also partner cities where some OASIS programming or tutoring programs are taking place. So in addition to our center in Washington, there are centers in Syracuse, New York, Rochester, New York, St. Louis, of course, Albuquerque, New Mexico, San Antonio, Texas, San Diego, and Los Angeles, California. And there used to be more centers. There were centers in Pittsburgh, Chicago. Over time, some of those centers have closed for various reasons, but there are 9 centers remaining. And we're really happy to be one of the centers, and I'd like to say we're the best center here in Washington. You can judge for yourself. So we've been in the DC area for close to 30 years. And originally, you may recall, if you've lived here for a while, there was an OASIS at the Lord & Taylor store in Friendship Heights and Lake Forest Mall. We've been at Montgomery Mall since 2007. Membership in OASIS is free, and we have a database which reflects 19,000 members over time. We've been sponsored by Suburban Hospital for over 25 years. And what that means is that they are our local sponsor. We are a nonprofit, independent nonprofit, but Suburban Hospital locally sponsors us basically by providing us with in-kind services. So our HR, our IT, our accounting are all supported by Suburban Hospital, which is a wonderful partnership. And we reside within the Community Health and Wellness Department at the hospital, which makes sense if you think about it, because productive and healthy aging does contribute to community health, is a community health issue. Keeping older adults engaged, active, out of the hospital, and living long, healthy lives is definitely a community health prerogative. Average age of our members is 75, but we range in age from 50 all the way to 90. We're a very well educated group, and pre-pandemic, more than 18,000 class seats were used every year. So it might be an individual taking multiple classes, but over 18,000 class seats were taken in through 2019. And since COVID, our numbers have changed a little bit, but we've been there and we'll get there again. So our mission, as I mentioned, is to promote healthy aging through three main programming parts. One is lifelong learning, and that's what I'm most involved with. Another is volunteer engagement. We have a lot of rich and robust volunteer opportunities, both through our center, and our major volunteer activity is our intergenerational tutoring program. So OASIS partners with many schools in Montgomery County and a few in the District of Columbia to provide tutors who work one-on-one with a child in sort of the basis for the program is reading, helping elementary school students with reading, but it's really a mentorship program. It's being an older adult or an adult in the child's life who is there regularly, provides, support, is the cheerleader for the child, and helps them with their reading. And then our third sort of leg of our stool of our mission is active lifestyles. So we offer exercise programs and a walking group and other things that get people out and about, being active, using their body, using their mind. So that's our mission. We offer all kinds of classes in the lifelong learning area: health and wellness, music, current events. You can see the list there. We offer programs, classes, which are mostly lecture-based classes in all of those areas. Here are some examples. I don't know if you recognize the guy in the top center in the blue shirt. That's John McCarthy. He's Montgomery County State's attorney. He's one of our most popular speakers. He's just a wonderful lecturer. He talks about law and order topics in the county, in the country, talks about body cameras. He did a talk last month on cannabis law. He keeps folks kind of very up to date on what's going on in the county and in the country from a legal perspective, and he's a great speaker. He's just one of many great speakers that we have. Some of our other great speakers include someone who's actually here with me at the meeting today. Can you guess who that is? Well, so far from your group, we've had the great opportunity to have Linda Berg-Cross as a speaker. And she's coming back and speaking in early March with her psychology hat on, talking about in-law and family relationships. And classes like that are very popular. People are interested in sort of self-development and learning more about how to live better lives, how to deal with conflict and things like that. So we're really happy to have Linda coming back. So anyway, we pre-pandemic, our center, which is at Montgomery Mall, tucked away in the Macy's home store, was a hive of activity. We had classes 5 days a week, mornings and afternoons. And we have our large classroom has a capacity for about 80 people, and we would routinely fill that classroom up. And sometimes we went to an overflow site up at the Hopkins campus in Rockville, where we had a 250 seat auditorium for some of our speakers that drew even larger audiences. So, it's been a little quieter since COVID, but I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a minute. Anyway, this is the kind of programming that we offer. Because of our connection to Suburban Hospital, we also are able to offer a lot of health programming. Most of it is free. So every month we have at least 1 or 2 doctors from the hospital talking about everything from avoiding diabetes to heart health to healthy eating. So we have just a wonderful resource of doctors and other professionals from Suburban Hospital who can talk to our group. We have some specialized groups, a wonderful caregiver support group that meets weekly. Folks who are in a caregiver role. Talk and Walk is a group for breast cancer survivors and people who are dealing with breast cancer. So we try to help folks maintain both physical and emotional health through our programming. And then I mentioned the intergenerational tutoring program. And here are just some photos of some of our tutors at work in the schools. They are passionate. They are passionate about their work. And the pandemic obviously caused a huge disruption in education and caused a huge disruption to the tutoring program. We did have a small Zoom-based tutoring program up and running last summer. Now we're back in the schools. It's tricky, as you can imagine, but the tutors are so dedicated, and we look forward to getting back to some normalcy with our tutoring program as well. We just hired a new tutor coordinator because our previous coordinator retired, and she comes from the county and has a real understanding of how schools work, and just, teachers are just so restricted in what they have to do and what they need to squeeze into a day. And I think our new tutor coordinator will be able to help us work with schools even more successfully to integrate our tutors into the classroom. And that will be a win-win for everybody. But these are, if you ever just want to have a smile on your face, look at some of these pictures of these kids and tutors. There have been some wonderful relationships developed. Skip one. Tutors get letters from their students, like these cute letters. Mr. Savitz, thank you for helping me this year. I hope you have a great GRATE summer, from Alex. So that's just the kind of magic that happens in our tutoring program. We also use volunteers in lots of other ways and are always looking for wonderful volunteers. We had a volunteer who's a docent at the Supreme Court, and he has led many tours of the Supreme Court for us. We have volunteers who work in our center. We sometimes go out into the community. Up in the top center, you see a group of volunteers who go to Wider Circle with an OASIS group. And we're always looking for high capacity volunteers. Especially since the pandemic and we've pivoted to doing so much programming online. We're always looking for Zoom moderators to moderate our online classes. They've made it possible for us to keep offering classes. If staff had to moderate all the classes, we wouldn't be able to offer the number that we do. So Zoom moderators, classroom coordinators, folks who are at OASIS to introduce speakers and be there during the class to help with the Q&A and make sure things run smoothly. And also, I, as the program manager, have a program committee, something that our executive director suggested I start as soon as I began working at OASIS. And it's the best thing she ever could have done. So I have a really wonderful committee of volunteers who have interests all across the board. Sometimes professional backgrounds as well, but that's really not as important as folks who are just interested in finding and recruiting new speakers for OASIS. It's a wonderful, sorry, my phone just rang. I thought I put it on Do Not Disturb. Our program committee, I couldn't do the amount of programming without their help. So if you're looking for some additional volunteer opportunities, we are always looking for wonderful volunteers in any of the ways that I just mentioned. Be happy to tell you more. How are we funded? So we are a nonprofit. Our class fees are our main source of revenue that cover our operating costs. We do charge, I think, pretty modest fees per class, about $12 an hour, and most classes are an hour to an hour and a half. We do have some fundraising and grants. Macy's, the reason we're at the Macy's home store is because Macy's donates our space, which is very fortunate. And then, as I mentioned previously, we get some in-kind services from Suburban Hospital, Johns Hopkins Medicine. So we kind of have this four-legged stool, I guess you would say, of support. That's worked for our entire tenure in DC, and that's how we plan to continue. So, as I mentioned, membership is free, and happy to have you visit our website. And I'm sorry, now my computer's decided to, hold on a second. I'm trying to snooze it. I hope I can. That would be terrible. I have 2 minutes before my computer restarts automatically. Anyway, you see our contact information here. If I lose you guys and I have to come back, I'll come back as soon as I can. I'm really sorry about this. This is a forced update from Johns Hopkins Hospital that I can't really ignore. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about sort of, what's been happening during COVID. One thing is that our executive director, Anna Stokes, is a nurse, and she was detailed to Suburban Hospital almost at the beginning of the pandemic.
Linda, tell us a little bit about your time speaking there and what you spoke about. You always have such interesting topics. I still like use your sleep and how to get back to sleep at night talk. I thought that was wonderful. And you are muted.
Thank you. Yes, this time I've given sleep talks at OASIS, but this time I have a long-term interest, and I've done research in-law relationships. And it's always a lively topic since, needless to say, we laugh and everybody relates to all of it. And it turns out that there are better ways of dealing with very difficult situations. So it's a lot of fun to give this talk. So,
as I said, my mom's coming in town. Let me get my wife for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were you talking about? You talk about in-law relationship?
Yeah.
What would you talk about?
You can talk, I'm really going to focus on parent-in-law and child relationships, but you could talk about brother-in-law, sister-in-law, sibling relationships, right. Complex families where there's.
Do you have any tips on dealing with son-in-laws?
Yes. Son-in-laws are easier than daughter-in-laws.
Oh, really?
By far.
Is that right?
Yeah. There's a very famous saying that we're all not lucky enough to marry orphans.
Right. That's funny. That's funny.
Where were you 50 years ago?
Yeah, right.
Linda, we're watching a TV series on Netflix called Bloodline, which is an excellent example of the worst possible in-law relations.
I'll have to look at it then. What's it about?
A great day. You got everything it takes.
Yeah.
Is it a contemporary type about, modern
Yes.
day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, down in Key West or near Key, Florida. They all live and they all don't get along.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
And they all find,
I'll look at it.
and they find a bit of mischief also. Yes.
Ah.
Yeah.
What else are people watching that you've really enjoyed? Anybody get something new that?
Well, I can tell you, if for those who have a lot of time, 72 episodes, and you have to be willing to read subtitles. It's French. It's called The French Village. It's about how France was a village in France that was occupied in World War II, but it goes from before the war. It's 7 seasons. Each season.
It's a fabulous show. We did them all.
You did them
French
all?
Village.
Oh.
Yeah, we did them.
Where does one find it?
I love it.
The library.
You find
Any
it
of
in the library?
any of the Montgomery County libraries.
Yeah. Because after the first 2 seasons, you're on disc. Okay, Janice, you're back. Hooray.
I'm back. I'm so sorry. I mean, you guys are obviously a very important group, but I'm really glad this wasn't a presidential briefing.
You're right.
Okay.
We didn't talk about you much.
Okay, good. Well, anyway, the slideshow is done. Linda has our contact information. I invite you to check out our website. I thought I'd just tell you a little bit about what it's been like since COVID. I totally related to everything you were saying earlier about your hybrid meetings, and because we know that hybrid Zoom is not going away. Even if we are back in person, Zoom is not going away. It's a wonderful solution for a lot of people. I think I was telling you a little bit about our connection to the hospital and how that really came into play during the pandemic. So our director, Anna, was working at the hospital all during the pandemic and kind of splitting her time. Those of us on staff who are not medical people, we got to participate in the vaccine clinics. I don't know if any of you got your shot at Suburban Hospital last spring, but OASIS staff were involved in a non-clinical way. We weren't giving shots at the hospital. And it was just a great way to really meet the community and serve the community. And that's really one of the cool things about OASIS being part of the hospital system. Recently, I delivered trays in the hospital because, as you know, during the pandemic, hospitals have been so, staffing has been a huge issue with the Omicron surge, and staff was calling out sick and whatever. So they were redeploying people from non-clinical areas. So I got to deliver trays a couple times in the hospital, and that was a cool experience too, to really, see the hospital at work. It is a hive of activity. It's not just the doctors and the nurses, although God knows they are amazing, but just huge numbers of staff behind the scenes make that hospital work. So that was cool. So during COVID, obviously we weren't having in-person classes. We had been experimenting with Zoom anyway, because a lot of our folks, for various reasons, aren't able to come into classes because of weather or illness or transportation. So we had some experience with Zoom and were able to switch pretty quickly to offering all of our programs on Zoom. And so for about 1.5 years, our center was closed, but we were still offering online programming. The pandemic really spotlighted for us the issue of social isolation of older adults. It was an issue before for many adults, and the pandemic just really brought it into relief what an issue it is, and it's a health issue. Social isolation is a health issue. So we really are doubly committed to helping address social isolation through our programming, meeting people where they are. We will continue to offer online programming even if the world gets completely back to normal, because we know that's what some people want or prefer or need. But we did reopen our center in September. We are seeing a kind of a slow, small core group of people who are comfortable coming to class in person, but we're still offering a healthy offering of online programming. Linda's class coming up is online. We are also dabbling in the hybrid world because some people do want to come in and some people don't, and they don't want to have to give up their John McCarthy just because he's in person. if they stay home, they want to see John McCarthy too. So we've had some terrifying moments like I just had with audiovisual, making it all work. I think we're getting pretty good at it. An instructor comes to Oasis, gives the class to the people there in the classroom, which is greatly reduced capacity. And at the same time is talking to an at-home audience. And we've gotten better at it. And it's largely with the help of our Zoom moderators who are still at home moderating the online portion, that it is all able to happen. One thing I wanted to mention real quickly, and then I'll take any questions that you have, is in addition to our lecture-based programming, I think one of the things that makes Oasis special is our discussion programs. We have a large number of discussion groups, men's, women's, mixed, themed groups. Like we just kicked off our second year of doing a Great Decisions discussion group, which is the Foreign Policy Association's guided discussion group. Discussion groups are really a lifeline because they offer an opportunity not only for folks to cognitively engage, but to socially engage. And one of the most interesting things we saw is almost at the very beginning of the pandemic, we were able to transition our discussion groups to be online. And they have really thrived during the pandemic. I think they've been a lifeline for the members. They are religious about participating. They learned how to use Zoom. And you know, they've continued to be a real lifeline for people, and they don't want to give them up. And, you know, whether they'll go back in person or not, I'm not sure, but we know that the discussion groups are important for the reasons that I just mentioned. So what we're looking going forward in this new world is continuing what we're doing with our bread and butter kind of lectures, recognizing online, but also trying to provide opportunities, other ways for people to engage safely with others. So our discussion groups, we're planning a lot of trips and outdoor activities for the spring and summer, walks, tours, visits, hands-on activities, and volunteer opportunities. And I think our mix of programming in the future will be a little different than what it was in the past. And we're still in the process of figuring that out. We're always looking for great speakers. So if you know anybody, Paul, I think I'm going to have to call you up. Looks like Paul. Oh, there you are, Paul. I'm always looking for great speakers. And as I mentioned, the other volunteer roles that I mentioned earlier, program committee, moderators, coordinators, I'd love to have you. And thank you for your attention and interest, I hope. And do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. My name is Bob. My question has to do with the funding. Where do you get your funding from? Is it county, state, or federal, or private?
We do not get any county or state or federal funding. It's all through our class fees. We charge a modest fee for each class, do some individual fundraising each year. And then our connection to Suburban Hospital provides us with some in-kind professional services like HR and IT. And we get our space free because we're in the Macy's home store. So it's this multi-part funding.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How did you get the free space at Macy's?
So I think it has something to do with the May Company, which I think when Marilyn Mann first started Oasis, she had a relationship in St. Louis with the May Company, which was a department store company. They own department stores, and worked out an arrangement with them. And I think over time, the Macy's took over the May Company or acquired the stores within the May Company. So that relationship has continued. We're very fortunate.
Yeah, it's fairly hard to get free space. I mean,
That
it is.
Too. Janice, are people taking courses at different Oases on Zoom? You know, like, oh, there's a course in St. Louis I want to take.
Yeah. So the Oasis Institute, our parent in St. Louis, started a streaming platform called Oasis Everywhere, in which content from different centers can be made available on their streaming platform. So it sounds like you've experienced that. So yeah, you can, through Oasis Everywhere, you can take classes from the San Diego Oasis, the Syracuse Oasis, and just like we have a core of wonderful instructors, each of the centers has developed a core of wonderful instructors. So yeah, Oasis Everywhere, you can access that through our website. Thank you. Yeah. Anything else?
I have a
I just
question
want to
about the mentoring with the students.
Mhm.
What's their procedure for getting permission to work with students? I assume these are public school students?
Public school students, it's a laborious process, as you can imagine. But we jump through all the hoops that the county schools want us to. Our volunteers have to be background checked, fingerprinted, parents have to give permission. It's quite a process, but we do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your catalog is online, is that right, on the website?
It is. I'll put our website in the chat. Yeah. And we actually just put out our March and April catalog. At this point, we're planning 2 months at a time. As you can imagine, that's about as far ahead as we can plan these days. So, okay, so that's our email address. And then our website is washington-metro@oasisnet.org.
Well, Janice,
And
I just want to say thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. That was a great talk. We really appreciate your time. So, and to all my fellow Rotarians, that concludes our meeting. We will see you via Zoom next week. So go out, be good Rotarians, and we'll see you next week.